November 1872. From the fog-shrouded port of New York, the Mary Celeste set sail carrying a crew of 10, including Captain Benjamin Briggs, his wife, their young daughter, and a heavy cargo of alcohol. What began as an ordinary voyage would in just a few weeks become one of the greatest mysteries in maritime history. Weeks later, off the coast of the Azores, Mary Celeste was discovered, drifting fully intact, meals still laid out on the table, coats and personal belongings untouched. Yet not a single soul remained aboard. No cries for help, no signs of struggle, only the cold Atlantic and the white-capped waves swallowing every explanation. A strange disappearance, a mystery beyond comprehension. Naval records indicate that Mary Celeste had encountered no storms, no collisions, no reported large swells. The crew were seasoned sailors familiar with tempests and strong currents. So, what happened? Who left the ship and why abandon everything? These questions gave rise to the legend of a ghost ship. When rescue parties found her, the scene stunned everyone. Lifeboats intact, cargo holds undisturbed, the captain's log almost complete, but the people were gone. Captain Briggs, his wife, their daughter, the crew, not a footprint, not a note, not a signal. Across the seas, the story spread rapidly, instilling fear that transcended time. Locals and sailors claimed that on moonlit nights, a ghostly ship could be seen drifting through the mist. Empty of life, yet faint knocks could be heard, as if reminding the world that Mary Celeste still existed somewhere, with its unsolved secret. Folk tales spoke of eyes peering from empty cabins, whispers of vanished sailors, sending chills down anyone who dared hear them. The voyage began like any other, departing at dawn, calm waves, gentle breeze. But the ocean is never simple. A week later, Mary Celeste had completely vanished from sight. No storms, no attacks, just silence. That silence became the sole witness, highlighting a singular disappearance, a fate unknown. Small clues appeared, a drifting coat, a floating bottle of alcohol, fragments of entries in the log. Yet, they meant nothing without the crew. Questions lingered. Had they encountered a nightmare at sea, or had some invisible force erased their existence? Years later, reports layered the folklore. Sailors reported shadowy shapes amid the mist, soft knocks on the empty deck, a sense that Mary Celeste was still watching the waves. Each story added another layer of uncertainty, intensifying fear and mystery. Mary Celeste was not just a case. It became a symbol of human helplessness before nature, before the unknown, and before questions that may never be answered. Every captain, every sailor passing through these waters sensed something unseen, cold observing, as if Mary Celeste had never truly left the Atlantic. And then the haunting details, meals untouched on the table, personal belongings neatly arranged, yet no one remained. Logs, reports, and witness statements conflicted, each clue deepening the mystery, leaving audiences shivering, asking who left the ship. Were they alive? The ocean keeps its secrets, and if you listen closely, you might sense an invisible presence among the waves. As Mary Celeste left New York Harbor, the crew were said to be in high spirits. Captain Briggs, meticulous and precise, overseeing every detail, ensuring the ship was seaworthy. The weather reported calm, the Atlantic seemingly benign. The first days passed without incident, the waves gentle, the wind, steady sails full, the cargo secure. Yet the ocean has a way of hiding its intentions behind deceptive calm. Entries in the captain's log from the first week reveal ordinary notes, routine checks of the hull, the crew's duties, minor repairs, nothing that hinted at the horror to come. Each morning, the sun rising over the water, reflections, dancing on the gentle swells, the crew performing their tasks with practiced efficiency. There were moments of laughter, small routines of meals and chores, the captain's daughter playing on deck, unaware of the shadow that would soon engulf them. But as the days stretched on, subtle anomalies began to creep into the records, a note here, a remark there, hinting at unease. A broken tool left in the hold, a rope frayed, a crate slightly shifted. Small details that in isolation meant nothing, but collectively they form the threads of a tapestry that points to the extraordinary. Some logs describe strange weather patterns, sudden squalls that appeared without warning, mist rising inexplicably over the horizon, phenomena sailors of the time struggled to explain. Then came the reports from other ships in the area, sightings of a lone vessel drifting without course, sails slack, no signs of activity. Whispers spread among the maritime community, stories of ghost ships, of crews disappearing as if swallowed by the sea. These tales merged with the facts, a blending of reality and folklore, creating the enduring legend of Mary Celeste. The ship's hold, filled with barrels of alcohol, remained untouched. According to the records, there was no fire, no explosion, no attempt at sabotage. Nothing suggested panic, nothing indicated a struggle, yet the crew was gone. Families waiting in New York for news received no letters, no messages. Time itself seemed to stretch into silence, the Atlantic holding its secret tightly, as though mocking human attempts to understand. Folklore tells of sailors seeing shadowy figures on the deck, fleeting glimpses of movement that vanish as quickly as they appear. Some claim that in the dead of night, when the wind shifts just so, the faint creak of the gangway or the soft slap of a rope can be heard across the waves. Stories grew, embellishing the facts, the daughter of Captain Briggs sometimes glimpsed in the mist pointing toward the horizon. Voices soft and distant echoing across the empty water. Yet the factual evidence is equally compelling. The ship was discovered weeks later, in perfect condition, floating free from the current. Meals remained uneaten, charts neatly stacked, personal items in their places. Not a single note, not a single footprint. The crew had vanished without explanation, leaving behind only the ship itself, as witness to an occurrence that defies logic. In examining Mary Celeste's final voyage, historians have debated every possibility: piracy, mutiny, rogue waves, sudden illness, alcohol fumes. Each theory holds some merit, but none explains the simultaneous disappearance of the entire crew. And so, the mystery deepens, entwining with myth, becoming a story told from generation to generation. A story that lives in the fog over the Atlantic, in the creak of a deck, in the whisper of waves against hull. Mary Celeste's ghostly presence became a symbol, a reminder of the ocean's merciless power, of human vulnerability, of the unknown lurking beyond the horizon. The ship drifted on, a silent testament to fate unknown, and the world could only watch, wonder, and whisper questions into the wind, questions that have yet to find answers. Weeks into the voyage, the Atlantic grew colder, the winds shifting unpredictably. Captain Briggs maintained his meticulous routine, inspecting the ship, checking the rigging, ensuring barrels of alcohol were secure. Crew members performed their duties with quiet efficiency, unaware that their routine was to be disrupted by an event so bizarre it would echo through history. Reports from other vessels began to hint at the extraordinary sightings of a lone ship drifting aimlessly, sails slack, no one visible on deck. Mariners whispered among themselves, speaking in hushed tones of ships haunted by absent crews, of strange lights on the horizon. Yet, when these reports were compared with Mary Celeste's intended route, the overlap was unsettling. The ghostly vessel mirrored the path she had taken. The discovery itself was surreal. Weeks later, the Mary Celeste was found by the Dei Gratia, a British brigantine off the Azores. The rescuers approached cautiously, expecting damage, perhaps signs of struggle. Instead, they encountered perfection. The ship floated upright, sails set, but empty cargo, intact meals, untouched, personal belongings in place. No lifeboats had been launched. The captain's log lay open, meticulously maintained, but entries stopped abruptly, mid-sentence, mid-thought. A sudden silence frozen in time. Examination of the hold revealed nothing suspicious. No fire, no explosion, no sign of foul play. The barrels of alcohol, crucial cargo, remained sealed. Not a single item was missing. The mystery deepened, for there were no bodies, no footprints, no signs of escape or panic. Only the empty vessel drifting, as if the ocean itself had taken the crew. Fact and folklore intertwined, each reinforcing the other. Sailors' tales added layers of dread to the narrative. Some spoke of faint shadows moving across the deck when the mist hung low, of whispers carried on the wind, indistinct voices calling across the water. Others described seeing fleeting figures like children pointing toward the horizon before vanishing into the gray expanse. Folklore transformed the cold facts into an enduring legend, a ship haunted not by ghosts but by questions unanswered. Historians have examined every conceivable scenario: piracy, mutiny, sudden illness, alcohol vapor, rogue waves, navigational error. Each explanation holds some plausibility, yet none accounts for the complete simultaneous disappearance of Captain Briggs, his family, and the crew. It was a singular disappearance, fate unknown, a mystery resistant to rational interpretation. The Atlantic, vast and indifferent, seemed to guard its secret jealously. Letters sent from New York never arrived. Families waited in anxious hope for news that would never come. Weeks turned to months, months to years, and still Mary Celeste floated, as a symbol of the ocean's merciless power and the fragile vulnerability of humankind. And in the quiet of the night, when the sea is calm and the fog rolls in, maritime lore insists that Mary Celeste can still be glimpsed, sails, slack hull gliding silently, the echoes of a vanished crew carried on the wind. Some swear they have heard faint knocks, a creaking gangway, or the whisper of a child's laughter across the waves. Fact and legend merge, leaving a chilling question: what truly happened aboard Mary Celeste, and why does the Atlantic keep its secrets so well? The story of Mary Celeste remains a testament to the unknown, a haunting reminder that some mysteries, no matter how well documented, cannot be tamed, and that the ocean, vast and eternal, holds secrets that man may never uncover. And as we watch the horizon, imagining the ship drifting in silence, we are left with one inexorable truth. Some disappearances refuse to be explained, leaving only the wind, the waves, and the shadow of a ghost ship. When the crew of the Dei Gratia finally boarded Mary Celeste, the atmosphere was surreal. The deck was spotless, sails fluttered gently in the breeze, but there was no sign of life. Not a word, not a footstep, not a whisper. Every object remained in place, as though the crew had simply stepped away for a moment and would return any second, yet they never did. The captain's cabin held a chilling silence, the logbook open mid-thought, ink still legible, the last entry abruptly ending without explanation. In the hold, barrels of alcohol stood undisturbed, precisely as they had been loaded. Food remained in the galley, untouched plates neatly set. Personal effects, clothing, hats, navigational instruments, all lay where they had been placed. There were no signs of panic, no evidence of struggle. It was as if the crew had evaporated into thin air. Every fact defied logic, challenging seasoned sailors and investigators alike. Reports from the Dei Gratia's crew added to the eeriness. The air felt unusually cold on deck. A silence that seemed unnatural hung over the ship. The waves lapping against the hull made no typical ship sounds, no creaks or groans expected of a vessel carrying heavy cargo. The only movement was that of the wind through the rigging. Every detail heightened the sense of otherworldly presence. Historians and investigators pored over the records. Theories emerged and vanished: piracy, mutiny, rogue waves, alcohol fumes, navigational errors, sudden illness. Each hypothesis had flaws. None could convincingly explain the disappearance of an entire crew, including the captain, his wife, and daughter. Every possibility collided with the immutable fact: the ship was intact, orderly, yigily, and empty. Singular disappearance, fate unknown. And then came the folklore stories sailors told after dark, in the quiet of ports or around crackling fires. Shadowy figures glimpsed on the deck, moving without sound. Whispers drifting over the water, faint as a breath. Fleeting laughter, a child pointing toward the horizon before vanishing into the fog. Each tale layered fear upon fact, cementing Mary Celeste in maritime legend. Some chroniclers claimed that those who later sailed the same waters sensed an inexplicable presence. A subtle shiver, a sense of being watched, the eerie notion that the ship itself retained memory. Sailors recounted faint knocks, creaking boards, or the distant murmur of a family long gone. These stories, though unverifiable, reinforced the psychological weight of the known facts and the unnerving possibility that the ocean holds knowledge humans are not meant to grasp. Mary Celeste became more than a ship. It became a symbol of human vulnerability and the unknowable nature of the sea. Every empty cabin, every undisturbed item, every abruptly ending log entry whispered a story of absence that no one could solve. As the ship drifted still and silent, it carried the questions onward, leaving the world with only speculation and legend. The motif extended beyond the Atlantic. Echoes of Mary Celeste surfaced in tales of vanished hikers, in America's national parks groups, disappearing without trace, campsites left intact. The pattern was hauntingly similar: absence with everything in place, ordinary moments interrupted by inexplicable vanishing. Whether on water or land, the threads of mystery wove a tapestry of fear, connecting these events across time and space. And in that silence, the observer cannot help but ask what force, natural or otherwise, claimed the lives of the Mary Celeste's crew. Was it misfortune, human error, or something beyond comprehension? The Atlantic keeps its secret well, a reminder that some disappearances refuse to be solved, leaving only the wind, the waves, and the spectral outline of a ship. As the rescuers from the Dei Gratia explored Mary Celeste more thoroughly, an unsettling calm enveloped the ship. The crew moved through the cabins, noting that every item remained in its assigned place. Books stacked neatly on shelves, charts laid flat on the navigation table, personal effects carefully arranged. Even the galley bore no evidence of haste or panic plates, with uneaten food knives and forks, precisely set a kettle still warm from recent use. It was as if the crew had vanished into thin air at the very moment they had last been awake. The captain's log drew particular attention. Inked entries chronicled the voyage in meticulous detail: weather conditions, routine inspections, coordinates, and minor observations. Until one day entries stopped abruptly, leaving a sentence incomplete. A thought suspended, a narrative broken in time. Investigators pored over these pages, searching for hidden meaning, any clue to the crew's fate. But the silence was impenetrable, and the empty pages became a chilling testament to what had occurred. Outside, the Atlantic remained in different waves, lapping softly against the hull, the sun casting reflections on the gentle swells. There were no signs of struggle, no damage to the vessel, no evidence of foul play. Yet the absence of human life created an unnatural tension, as though the ship itself carried a lingering presence. Each creak of the deck, each snap of a line in the wind seemed amplified, a ghostly echo of those who had vanished. Folklore began to intertwine with fact, creating a narrative that grew with each retelling. Sailors spoke of seeing shadowy figures moving across the deck at dawn, only to vanish moments later. Some claimed to hear soft whispers carried on the wind, indistinct voices repeating names long gone. Others told of fleeting glimpses of a small child pointing toward the horizon, fading into mist before any response could be made. These stories, passed orally among mariners, gave life to the ghostly essence of Mary Celeste, transforming a factual mystery into an enduring legend. Investigators considered every possible scenario. Could it have been mutiny? Piracy, rogue waves, a sudden outbreak of illness, alcohol fumes from the cargo. Each theory had its merits, but ultimately failed to account for the complete disappearance of the captain, his family, and the crew while leaving the ship intact. Singular disappearance, fate unknown. Every hypothesis collided with the reality of an orderly yet empty vessel, challenging reason and logic. The Atlantic, vast and secretive, seemed to claim ownership of the mystery. Families waited anxiously in New York, expecting letters or reports that never came. The passage of time did nothing to ease the uncertainty. Months passed, and Mary Celeste remained a symbol of absence, an eerie monument to questions that had no answers. The motif of disappearance extended beyond the oceans. Tales arose of hikers vanishing in America's national parks, trails left undisturbed, belongings intact, no trace of panic. The similarities were striking: ordinary routines interrupted by unexplained absence, the natural world remaining indifferent. Whether on land or sea, the theme persisted: objects left behind, people gone, mysteries enduring across time and geography. As observers, one cannot help but feel the weight of uncertainty. The Atlantic conceals its secrets with ruthless efficiency, leaving the human mind to grapple with the incomprehensible. And yet in the quiet, one senses Mary Celeste's presence not as a vessel of the dead, but as a keeper of questions. Questions that whisper across the waves, echo in the mists, and linger long after the ship has vanished from sight. In this way, Mary Celeste transcends the physical. She becomes a narrative, a symbol, a cautionary tale for all who sail the seas. A reminder that some disappearances, no matter how well documented, remain unsolvable, and that the ocean guards its mysteries with patient, indifferent vigilance. And as the wind carries the sound of waves against the hull, one can almost hear the echo of voices that are gone, voices that will never be found, leaving only the enduring silence of the sea. As the crew of the Dei Gratia continued their inspection, small details began to accumulate into a mounting sense of unease. In the captain's cabin, charts remained perfectly aligned, compasses untouched, and personal letters carefully stowed. Yet, something was wrong. The absence of life made every sound seem amplified, every shadow suspect. The ship, fully seaworthy and intact, should have been teeming with activity, yet silence reigned. The captain's log offered the only glimpse into the minds of those aboard. Daily entries, initially meticulous, charting weather coordinates and minor observations, abruptly ended mid-sentence. The final word spoke of calm seas and routine checks, then nothing. Historians have pored over these pages, analyzing every stroke of the pen, every blank space, searching for meaning in the silence. Yet, the more they examined, the more the unknown seemed to expand. Footsteps echoing on deck should have belonged to the crew, yet no footprints, no disturbances in the dust or on the wooden boards. Meals remained untouched in the galley bread, still fresh, a kettle, warm but unmoved. Personal effects, the captain's spectacles, his wife's handkerchief, the daughter's toys, lay exactly where they had been placed. An entire human presence vanished, leaving behind only the tangible, the orderly. And then there were the whispers sailors recounting decades later, hearing strange noises at sea. Some claimed to see fleeting figures on deck in the early dawn shadows that disappeared when approached. Others described distant voices, soft and indistinct, echoing across the waves. Even the most skeptical investigators could not dismiss the chill that accompanied these accounts. Folklore had merged with fact, transforming the Mary Celeste from a ship into a spectral enigma, a legend carried on the winds. Investigators proposed every conceivable scenario: mutiny, piracy, sudden illness, alcohol vapor from the cargo rogue waves, even natural gas emissions from the hold. Each theory offered fragments of explanation, but failed to account for the entire crew's simultaneous disappearance, leaving a ship orderly and intact. Singular disappearance, fate unknown. The paradox haunted those who sought answers, challenging reason and rationality alike. Families awaited news in New York, expecting letters or signals from their loved ones. Days became weeks, weeks turned into months, yet nothing arrived. Each passing moment deepened the collective anxiety. Mary Celeste, drifting alone on the vast Atlantic, became a symbol of absence, a chilling reminder of human vulnerability and the merciless, inscrutable nature of the sea. Even beyond the Atlantic, the motif resonated. Tales emerged of hikers vanishing without trace in America's national parks. Trails undisturbed, campsites intact, belongings untouched. The similarity was uncanny in ordinary routines interrupted by inexplicable disappearance, leaving only objects, landscapes, and unanswered questions. Whether on land or at sea, the pattern persisted, the uncanny coincidence of people gone and evidence left behind. And still the ocean seemed to guard its secret. Mary Celeste floated on silent and perfect, a vessel of questions rather than answers. Observers report that even today, when the mist hangs low over the waves, one might glimpse a shadow drifting with the fog. Faint knocks, a creaking board, the whisper of a child's laughter, ephemeral, fleeting, yet hauntingly real. Fact and legend intertwined, leaving the mind to navigate a liminal space between reason and fear. The Mary Celeste became more than a historical event. She became a narrative of absence, a cautionary tale for all who sail. A reminder that some mysteries, despite meticulous documentation and thorough investigation, refuse resolution, and that the Atlantic, vast and indifferent, holds truths beyond comprehension, preserving them in silence, in shadow, and in the enduring echo of a ghostly ship. As the investigation deepened, experts scrutinized every possibility, every nuance. Was it piracy? But no evidence of foul play existed, no ransacked cargo, no signs of a struggle. Could mutiny have occurred? Yet the crew was disciplined, loyal, experienced, and no motive clearly emerged. Perhaps a sudden illness or fumes from the cargo theories plausible, yet they failed to explain the total disappearance. Singular disappearance, fate unknown. Each hypothesis collided with the stubborn reality the ship remained intact, orderly, and completely devoid of life. The captain's final entries were analyzed again and again. Scholars noted the calm, precise observations, the abrupt cessation mid-thought, as if the words themselves were swallowed by the sea. The incompleteness became a haunting punctuation, a pause in time that no historian could fill. Every blank space, every empty line amplified the silence of the ocean, echoing the absence of those who had vanished. Then there were the accounts from folklore. Mariners spoke of the ship appearing ghost-like in the fog sail's slack hull, gliding silently as if it had a will of its own. Shadowy figures were glimpsed, fleeting, elusive, never fully seen. Some described faint, disembodied voices calling names across the water. Others recounted lights on deck that vanished when approached. Whether these stories were true or a product of fear and imagination, they reinforced the aura of Mary Celeste as a vessel suspended between reality and myth. Comparisons were drawn to disappearances on land. Hikers in America's national parks, vanishing without trace, campsites, untouched, trails, undisturbed, personal belongings neatly arranged. The uncanny parallels suggested a pattern, ordinary routines interrupted people, gone objects remaining. Across oceans and continents, the motif persisted, presence abruptly erased, leaving only the tangible world and unanswered questions. Even the simplest observations became eerie. The creak of a board, the swish of a rope in the wind, the glint of sunlight on polished wood, all imbued with the ghost of those who had vanished. And in the minds of those who examined the Mary Celeste, the sense of watchfulness remained the Atlantic as a silent custodian, keeping its secret, guarding its vanished souls. Mary Celeste had become more than a ship, more than an event. She was a narrative of absence, a cautionary tale, a symbol of the ocean's indifferent power. The empty cabins, the undisturbed Wargo, the abrupt end of the logbook all pointed to a reality, both mundane and horrifying. The human mind searches for explanations, yet some truths elude comprehension. Some disappearances are meant to remain unsolved. And so, Mary Celeste drifts endlessly in legend and memory, a reminder of the fragility of life at sea, of the unknown that lies beyond the horizon, and of questions that refuse closure. The Atlantic keeps its secrets with relentless patience, and the echoes of a ghostly ship remain whispering across waves and through mist. As we ponder her story, we are left with the unnerving certainty that some mysteries cannot and perhaps should not be resolved. In the end, the Mary Celeste is both history and myth, fact and folklore, a ship that departed New York with life aboard and arrived in legend. And as the wind moves across the deck, as the waves lap against the hull, we feel a presence silent, unseen, enduring. The questions remain. Who disappeared? Why did they vanish? And does the Atlantic still hold them somewhere forever? Decades have passed, yet Mary Celeste continues to haunt the imagination. Scholars, sailors, and storytellers alike return to the same questions over and over. What truly happened aboard the ship? Was it an accident, human error, or something beyond comprehension? The Atlantic guards its secrets, jealously offering no answers. Only silence waves and the endless horizon remain as witnesses. In ports around the world, legends of ghostly ships are whispered. Tales of sailors glimpsing Mary Celeste's shadow in fog, hearing faint knocks, or sensing unseen presences drifting across the waves. Fact and folklore merge seamlessly, leaving a story that is both historical and supernatural. A narrative that reminds us how fragile life is at sea, how merciless the unknown can be, and how some mysteries refuse to be solved. And so, we leave the ship as it drifts through memory and myth, an eternal symbol of disappearance, absence, and unanswered questions. Every creak of wood, every ripple of the Atlantic seems to echo the vanished crew. They may have left this world physically, but their story lingers haunting, enduring, inexplicable. As we turn our eyes to the horizon, the lesson remains clear. Some events are beyond explanation, some disappearances are meant to remain mysteries. And perhaps that is what makes Mary Celeste truly unforgettable. A ghost ship, a story, a legend, forever adrift between reality and the unknown. And you have just witnessed one chapter of an enduring maritime mystery. If you want to uncover more unsolved disappearances, eerie legends, and haunting tales from history, subscribe now and join us as we explore the unknown.